Yay.
I'm just pulling up some stuff so I can reference some stuff.
Okay.
And I want to say hello and welcome to our viewers of this here Arghon AI Twitch channel. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to my thank you to my panelists, my fellow teammates and team members here, Jess and Paula, for joining us for today's Throwback Thursday. And for anyone who's watching who's not quite sure, what the heck is a Throwback Thursday on the Arghon AI Twitch channel? Throwback Thursday is where we get to explore technologies and ways of functioning of the present and the past, and we talk about what the future of them with artificial intelligence is going to be like. So, of course, as you know, we like to say this is a channel for discussion. So, anyone and everyone who has an opinion, please do share with us your thoughts for today's topic. And just to introduce it, what are we going to be talking about today on Throwback Thursday? Well, that's cooking. We're going to actually talk about the history of cooking. It's the thing that keeps all of society and humanity running. It's what we bond over. It's basically how we create memories as well as sustenance as a human population. So at the start of every episode, we like to do a random question, but before I do that, I'm just going to encourage everybody to check us out. We are Arghon AI. You can learn more about our artificial intelligence at arghon.com. It's at the top of the screen, arghon.com. We have put many years of expertise and effort into this. This is true artificial intelligence. Don't just take our word for it. Go download, go see what it's all about. And to ask us questions and actually be a part of a conversation, follow us on our social media. So that's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and here Twitch at Arghon AI. You know, we really enjoy hearing from you. And if you have any throwbacks you want us to talk about, that's the place. Those are the places to send us that message and let us know. So, all right. Random question for today. And we're going to keep it on theme. It's going to be food related. The question is, and audience, let us know what your response to this would be as well. Would you rather peel 10,000 potatoes and never eat them, or just keeping in theme to a conversation, or run 14 miles holding a cup of water?
First option.
Yeah, I don't make mine easy. So would you rather peel 10,000 potatoes and never eat them, or run 14 miles holding a cup of water?
Yeah, I'm going to peel the potatoes.
You're going to peel the potatoes?
Yeah. No, I'm having to peel the potatoes. You might slice, you know, if you accidentally, you know,
might cut your finger off.
You never know. Peeling potatoes it seems easy, but then you have to do it for hours on end.
But you didn't say time scale though. Like, I could be doing it across the whole week. I'm just doing a Paula. Paula normally does stuff like that.
But in the same respect, same with running.
It's the same. It's okay. We're gonna, because y'all could really. The time limit is 2 days. That's it. You only have 2 days to do one.
Okay, running. I'm gonna do the running then. Yeah.
Absolutely running. Absolutely running.
14 miles. 10,000 non-stop. Like, you have to run the whole 14 miles.
I mean, you mean like
2 days, but.
You mean in one thing? You said over the span of 2 days, so you can.
Yeah. I'm saying if it's slow, fine, you know. But you have a glass of water the whole time.
Yes.
Yeah.
No stipulation said you couldn't spill the water, but I can hold a cup. I can hold a cup with some water in it. That's fine. Yeah, definitely run.
Miles holding a cup with water in it.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, definitely. 10,000 potatoes and having to peel them?
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Nah. In 2 days, do you know that would be like a non-stop thing? 10,000 potatoes, one person?
Okay, so what if we were to change it and it was peel the potatoes in one day or run 14 miles and you have maximum of 2 hours to complete it?
Oh, I don't think I can do that,
Who
though.
can run 14 miles in 2 hours?
Peeling
A lot of
potatoes?
people.
Who could run 14 miles in 2 hours?
You have 2
What'd you
hours
say?
to 14 miles.
How many potatoes? How many potatoes?
10K.
10,000 potatoes or 2 hours to run 14 miles? Who can run 14 miles in 2 hours?
Olympic runners.
Because
Yeah, they can.
I mean, I think that would be a very small.
Right. So if that's the time that you have to pick one, which one are you doing?
If the timing, I have to do the potatoes because I just feel like I physically wouldn't be able to do the run.
Right? Who is able to do the run like that? Okay, if I could have time to train, I'm gonna pick the 14 miles and 2 hours. If I had time to train.
If you don't have time to train, what then?
I'm definitely taking potatoes. Definitely taking potatoes.
I would do the running. I'm different from y'all. I would even without the training, I'd still do the running.
I
It
would give it a go.
We
give the
have
running
to
a
try, yes, but
Yeah,
like
I totally do it. 2 hours?
Hours.
You can run. Nah, man, you could totally do 14 miles in 2 hours. You would just be exhausted. But you totally.
No.
But then again, you also have a different relationship to walking and running than I do. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I'm running on my
14 miles
for like
right. But 14 miles in 2 hours is cutting it close.
I would do it. I would do that one over. I would not want to peel the potatoes because I hate that wrist soreness that like I just. Plus, the likelihood of me actually cutting myself is high. I'd rather deal with sore muscles than cut muscles. I'd rather deal with that. So I would do the 2 hours, 14 miles.
So Ashy D95 has made an appearance. Hello.
Hi,
welcome
Ashy
back.
D95.
They said, I think I would run with the water.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a crazy, like, it's a good choice. That's the choice I would take if I could train for it, because 14 miles in 2 hours is almost impossible for most people.
I would pick that one though. I would totally pick that one. Get the right shoes, lace me up. I'm good.
Put me in, coach.
If there are no repercussions, if there are no like consequences to not fulfilling,
you get all the consequences. Every single one of the consequences for both.
Well, you know what? I'll be running away. Okay, I'm going to be running to someplace to rent a car and run away from them. Just kidding. That is
I'm doing the
that's
potatoes.
a good random question, though. That is a good random question.
Alrighty, well, speaking of potatoes, let's get into this episode. Thank you, ladies, for being a part, and thank you, Ashy D95, for sharing with us your thoughts and responses to this. So let's get into, the Throwback Thursday of cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Cooking, and Jess, I don't know if you already have it, but let's forget the video. All right.
Yeah.
So cooking has been a part of society since humans existed. Basically, raw is a quick way to get to food poisoning. So we've been cooking things for as long as we've been breathing, basically. So it's hard to exactly trace where, we kind of, as a human species, began our process with cooking. There are some examples of prehistoric cooking, and kind of scientists and historians basically believe that humans began to cook around 250,000 years ago, throwing meat into a fire. That's the most basic version of cooking you can get. Likely, a stick over an open flame, that roaster that you see when you look at like period pieces and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of just roast like a bird on a skewer. So say some scientists say Peking man roasted meats, but there's not enough evidence to support that. So if you want to follow along with some of this information, we've got in the chat section links for you to reference to know where we're getting our information from. All right, so the cooking technique of I think they called them the Ornatien, Ornatien people of France started with steamed food, wrapping leaves in hot embers, and during the Paleolithic period, kind of, and they would steam food that way. Egyptians in wall paintings going back to around 4000 BC show ancient Egyptians using methods like roasting, broiling, frying, and boiling to cook their meats. Assyria and Babylonia in biblical times, there's references of them using charcoal in cooking pans. And again, the first oven, the concept of an oven, dates back to around 6,500 years ago. And this was during 168 BC, what do they say? The first baking guild was established in Rome. So you have all of these different historical references, but basically humans have been using heat to prepare their food, since we could really think about it. And so a big part of how we prepare our food is not just the technical, heat to meat or vegetable process, but also, we talk about changes in agrarian society. We had hunter-gatherers who would pick, wild versions of things that we have today that are, we'll say, domesticated vegetables and plants, and but basically what's happened over time is that society went from being nomadic and following food and seasons to a more, we'll say, sedentary agrarian society. So that's where you culture your food, you actually grow it, you pick the plants that you're going to keep. And essentially what happens is a lot of the foods that we know today have actually shifted, and they are quite changed from what they originally were. Corn looks different. A lot of our citrus fruits look different. And that was done using a lot of hand pollination to actually create better seeds and better fruits to blend things together. So those were the early forms of genetic modification, hand pollinating the vegetables and plants that we actually liked the best, and making sure those survived over time. So when we're talking about like Mesopotamia and 9000 BC, you had crops like grains, barley, wheat, beans, lentils, leeks, turnips, all of that stuff. So that kind of made up a lot of that, society. When you were talking about hunter-gathering, and hunting has actually been a large part of the human food gathering process, and is still something done today, although quite differently from the past, given that before it was mostly about sustenance and using as much of the animal as possible. Things like pigs, deer, game birds, fish, and so originally to preserve those meats, we had things like smoking meats, drying or salting meats to preserve them, and then roasting, broiling, boiling to cook the meats. And so you had cauldrons and these large bits of pottery, and we see actually a lot of things as far as pottery and the cookware that's being used. We still use those same general forms, but what's happened over time is that the actual tools, the cookware, the pots have actually changed as human beings. What do you call it? Like smelting techniques for using iron ore and cast iron, and pottery techniques, and until you get to things like stainless steel. There has been a change in the materials used to cook. So when we talk about cooking, it isn't just throwing things on a fire and what happens on the stove, but we got to think as well about the way that we gather both the vegetables and grains as well as the meats, and then how we prepare them, because all of those things have been have changed over time and seen quite a bit of difference. You have meals in the first century AD of the Roman Empire. You had elaborate banquets, and then you had chefs who were focusing on, specific kinds of foods, and trying to make there was a focus going away from just sustenance to the taste, enjoying something. We know that a lot of cultures around the world have always been really into deep spice, and so that was also has been a part of on the African continent as well as the Asian continent, a lot of emphasis on flavor outside of just the food flavor itself, but adding spice and minerals and things to create various flavors and tastes. In the 1400s through the 1500s, you had spice trading expanded. Ingredients were being added to recipes. The Portuguese kind of would go to parts of Africa, India, and China, trade spices as well. There's a massive historical context to the spice trade. And again, it touched on, more intense topics like, slave trade, the trade between various European places and all of the exports that were happening to get various flavors around the world. So we're gonna sidestep that, but acknowledge that it happened and that it was not an entirely great circumstance. But when we think about the large history of food, so much of what is the story of how we eat meals is the story of how we create wealth, health, and sustain ourselves as societies, right? And so when you look at all of that, you end up pulling in a lot. There's a lot of things that go into our food outside of just, eating what's on the table.
Right.
Technology has really advanced things. So, again, stoves and a lot of these things were, you had like open flame and by the fire, and a generally women mostly were doing a lot of the cooking historically, but that kind of shifted as 1 second, you guys. Okay, that shifted as we saw as the means for cooking not only became easier, but also as becoming a chef was much more prestigious, right? Then you see men kind of entering the space, which generally happens, where if it becomes money, you find men suddenly flock to
gravitate. Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, the Renaissance period, they discovered citrus fruits that were in China. They discovered a lot of the spices from Africa and parts of Asia, and also similarly on the what is ours, the Western Hemisphere, North and South America. You had hunter-gatherer societies, but there were also, again, different flavors, different things used. Cocoa spread, it was in Africa, but it was also in parts of, there's a strong history in, I believe it's Mexico, but I know it's South America with cocoa and different things. So when we look at food, it is the story of globalization and the economy. And then you kind of move on to modern cooking, right? You have, let me see, can you move forward?
Yeah.
In the, I'm just waiting on the delay.
That's
I can't
okay.
see.
That's okay.
So just keep going through that. This is just an example of these traditional cooking methods that you saw. Again, they had cast iron pots and things like that. So again, as technology expanded, what we could use to cook and how we were able to cook has also not only increased in the time, or decreased, I should say, in the time spent cooking, but just the access to being able to cook large-scale meals, high-quality meals. Breads became much more accessible and a part of our daily lives, to the point where now we even have industrial-scale cooking, where we can go and shop, and we have grocery stores, and we have, if you could move on to the next slide, we have grocery stores, we have, in modern society, we've shifted from an agrarian focus where societies were actually based around, can the time, the seed time and harvest time. And if you had a lean year, it was lean food for a long time, and you relied on hunting and cured meats and things like that. Well, modern advancements in society have actually shifted what we are able to how we're able to produce food. Going from, again, we went from that kind of nomadic, going with the seasons, moving with the animals, to agrarian and focusing on being able to produce food on large tracts of land, etc. To now we have industrial farming. So you have things like tractors and irrigation systems, all of these things coming together to actually create such a plentiful kind of harvest experience that you now have major corporations that moved into that space. So instead of going to just individual markets, groups of people, whatever's farmed locally, we were able to, because of advancements in trade and shipping, being able to travel larger distances on larger ships, being able to produce industrial scale ovens and things like that. We were able to actually increase the amount of food that is produced and have what we call a surplus of food. There's still food scarcity in various parts of the world, and we acknowledge that. But when we look at, just to keep the scope narrow, when we look at we'll say average, Western kind of world approach to cooking, it's become about speed and fitting food to lifestyle, as opposed to life working around how we eat. Right? Instead of it being, well, all women were at home and in the kitchen because food took all day to prepare, because you're slow roasting it over an open flame, as we saw in the previous photos. It became, all right, well, we're all at work now. We all need to be able to access food. We need to access food quickly, right? So you have firms that make partially made food, that freeze-dried food, in the microwave situation. We have now where, instead of, say, I'm going to be on the farm, industrialization meant, okay, I'm in the cities and I have to go to a local market and then a local supermarket to get my food, purchase my food, and have access. And so if you could move on to the next slide. All right, I'm just waiting for
delay.
But there we go. So now we're talking about the present tense, grocery stores, restaurants. Food has become so readily available that instead of dealing with food scarcity, a lot of society has actually shifted to now we need to actually reduce the food intake because there's just so much available. Again, keeping aside any questions of food distribution and equal access, because we know those are issues, but just talking about it from the experience of it. The modern table has become almost a given, right? A given that we have, we can get fresh fruits, we can get fresh cherries, we can get out of season foods, again, because we have great trade, we have access to multiple cooking implements. We went from just having the stove and, a pot over flame, to having a stove, to having, very fancy ovens, to now we have things like microwaves. And then what you're seeing on the screen here, which is actually a discussion of 3D printing for food. That's a little bit advanced, but to get you into that mindset. So I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to actually ask the ladies, when you're thinking about food, right? The impact of food on your modern palate. We have now the ability to taste foods from all over the world. We have the ability to things like electricity have actually made having like hot plates that you actually put a pan on to cook wherever you may be. Portable stoves. We've had such an increase in the technologies that allow us to enjoy food where and whenever in our lifestyles. What are your thoughts on the place that food now has in our lives generally as a society, and then personally? And for our viewers, tell us, how do you see food preparation? Do you cook? How do you fit cooking and food into your lifestyle? And is it something you've thought of?
I mean, food is very important for all of us. People tuning in, you may have heard us have many conversations about food just on this Twitch channel. But yeah, I think for me, food is really important. It's how you survive. I'm always thinking, right, my next meal, what am I going to have? But I think my mind kind of went to the start of lockdown, especially in the UK, how literally the supermarkets were empty. Like I'd never seen anything like it, and it was interesting because yeah, you think food, everybody goes shopping every day, we've got families to feed, all that kind of stuff, and then the shock of having a lockdown, people literally went into meltdown and were like, right, we need to buy all of this just in case. So I think that was just a case of, because it's such an ease of access that any supermarket, you've got loads in like a 10-mile radius, you've got loads of different supermarkets. I think it just makes it so easy these days to get food, but also restaurants and everything, that is such a social aspect. Back in the day you were talking about, it was like a cultural thing, where now it's become this very like social occasion where, I know especially in London, most people now, when the restaurants are back open, they normally eat like four days out, because again, they would rather go out, have a social, meet their friends and do all of that, while they eat good food and not necessarily have to pay a lot of money for it. But I think food has always been really important to everybody. As you said, it's how we survive. It's a way of life. So it's just interesting to, how you go from women being in the kitchen all day preparing these meals, when now potentially you've been at work all day, you come in, microwave a meal, and you're done.
Yeah. I do believe that the topic of cooking and food and the role it plays in society today, I mean, that's a big question. The implications are huge when you say that, because, food, there is so much food now compared to back in the day. Back in the day, when you grew your food, you hunted your food, you cooked your food, you ate your food, and that's what you did. And then the next day you did the same thing over. Whereas now, many things are being mass produced with the creation of preservatives. Things are being given to us, and that has huge shelf life. It's weird because there's a lot of waste in the whole food industry and with cooking as well, but it all is dependent not just on whether or not you are hungry or not. It all is like a socioeconomic thing. It's an access question now, where as before, cooking back in the day, it yes, I'm sure that came into play, but the thing is it's almost magnified now, that there is so much waste on one spectrum of food, and then there is little to no access to nutritional options or food in general. Cooking and food, it really over the years has taken on a whole different life in itself. I do believe that the advancements we've had, it has been a good thing, to say that now we don't have to just eat seasonally, but we have options now. It is funny because a lot of people now in current day, they actually prefer to eat seasonally because, usually the vegetables have, little like scientific alterations. Yeah. And the nutritional value is really what it is, because this is the season in which it naturally thrives and grows and is abundant. As with anything that advances through the years, now the difference is that we have choices in how we access these certain things. If we are lucky enough to have access to it, because that is not a given. Because we have turned away from more like eating from the ground kind of ways of cooking, and almost depending on the grocery stores to get our food, and dependent upon, well, if I buy this, I know I'll get this. That's not always the comfortable situation that everyone has the comfort of knowing. I do think cooking with the different options. I also do think we have many different options of the nutritional content that we are trying to get from our food. Yeah, there's a lot in this topic of cooking. I don't want to keep on going on and on, but I mean, you hit on a lot of good points, Lauren, and Jess. Same with you. It's a vast conversation, and I do believe cooking, it has changed socially, it has changed culturally, it has made different cultures, food available to the whole world. So I do believe that, you know, we are very lucky in a way that we get to experience different flavors from around the world, even if people haven't necessarily traveled to those specific places. um, yeah, I think access and what comes with that is a whole other conversation. But the advances in cooking have been very, very many. It has been a vast shift from back in the day to where we currently are. Um, I'm really excited as to how this conversation can change with the future and incorporating artificial intelligence into the conversation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you, ladies. So yeah, let's look at the future of food, of cooking, of food production. Jess, I can't remember. Is this the last image I gave you, or was there another one after this?
This is the last one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, when we look at the future of food production, one of the big things that is often talked about is 3D printing, being able to print what we eat. Right? It just comes out of a nozzle, as you can see on the screen, and essentially you can create things like, let's say, pizzas or cakes, or various foods. Obviously, there is still a lot of work to be done technologically to make this something that is massively available. But we find that there are so many different innovations that are happening as far as food access, food preservation. It's the food tech industry is actually quite expansive, and it would be a lot to actually get into here. So we don't want to get too deeply into it, but we're going to speak more on a theoretical level here, more concepts, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that's really great that we see as far as changing technology is something called vertical farming. And that is where you actually have a wall, instead of farms taking up, large swaths of flat land. Actually, what's happened is the plants are grown on a vertical wall, and the soil is kind of held flat against the wall as the plant grows out. And what does that mean? That means we can actually create large amounts of food on less land.
Yeah.
And in these same environments, these, I guess you could call them almost artificial farms, we're able to do things like temperature control, again, manage the nutrients in the soil as well as the moisture content of the soil, and create kind of these greenhouses that are the optimal conditions for plant production, food production, right? There's such a thing as, there's alternative meats that are alternatives to meat that have been, explored. Things like, the Beyond Burger or the Impossible Burger, chicken without the I in it, just basically these alternatives to the traditional meat diet. And we've seen a lot of these changes are also a part of just a kind of growing consciousness that we have as a human population as to our impact on the world, on the environment. So what we find is that not only have our cooking practices changed to meet our lifestyle, but as was I think mentioned maybe by Paula, our lifestyles are now actually shifting towards in relation to our food, to our cooking, to our to the things we eat.
That was Jess. Yeah.
That was Jess? Okay. Well, one of the wonderful ladies here did it. But what we see is that our society has shifted where it's now not just about, okay, make the food fit our lifestyle, but make our lifestyle fit with what we want out of our food. As was Paula, you did mention it because you're talking about like simple.
Okay, yeah. Sorry.
I kind of touched on it briefly, but I think you went into it. Yeah.
So with the seasonal eating, where we actually find that what's happened is that our knowledge, as our knowledge and our ability and our technology has expanded, so has our understanding of why some elements were good in the past, and kind of picking and choosing how we do nourishment. So when we look at the future, let's talk about the future. How does AI and cooking, how do they intersect? Well, it's a many splendid thing. And I'm going to talk about a few things. I'm going to talk about food prep, right? The actual making, the cooking, the farm, and then just the access, how we access food. What does that mean? What is that like? So we touched on it obviously with the food prep. In that, we have things like microwaves, we have things like 3D printers. The means of accessing food, what we find is that society wants to be ever more well fed, but in even less time. So 3D printing and trying to make sure we get highly nutrient foods available to everyone has become, a massive part of that. How AI is involved is that, think about the connected home, right? All of these devices, whether it's a blender, an oven, your stove, all of these devices can actually be managed by an AI, right? Yeah. The Internet of Things makes that possible. So, if I'm coming home and my AI is aware of, okay, you're 5 minutes out, let me turn on the oven, start preheating, let me shift something in the fridge to the thaw box, right? So it can thaw out, and, different things, different ways that our appliances actually become smart and kind of predictive using machine learning, to create kind of almost deeply automated cooking processes that are more sophisticated than, say, just shoving something in a microwave, pop it in for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Not 5 minutes, a minute or so. We have that experience where your AI can actually know your schedule, and now it's actually helping not to just prepare, that regular, the freeze-dried, pre-prepared food, but actually real cooked, meals, nutritious meals, but in less time, knowing exactly what you want, when you want it. We have things like smart fridges that allow people to know, hey, this is what's in your fridge, this is what you need, but as well being able to order the things from the grocery stores that are necessary. Did I have anything was there a grocery store of the future image? You might have passed it already.
That might be the last one, actually.
I think it has a guy in the picture.
There you go. That's the last one. Yeah.
Okay. There you go. So yeah, we talk about things like the grocery store of the future, farms of the future. Artificial intelligence is similar to, I think it was a Topic Tuesday that we mentioned a few weeks ago, where we said, AI satellites help to manage the moisture in the soil and check the moisture in the soil. That works not just for fire prevention, but also for agrarian, production of meats as well as vegetables. By having farms that are smart run, we can have again the biggest cherries we've ever seen, the biggest eggplants and strawberries, and because the AI is able to say, okay, well, based on these prior learnings from farming and what worked, we think these particular changes in various elements, again, moisture content, soil, fertilization, light exposure, lack of light exposure, angle that we grow the food at, all these different things, the AI can actually help farmers to more efficiently and more accurately produce the kinds of foods. We have genetic modification, so that's where we take various strains from one plant to another plant to create, let's say, apples that don't rot on the vine as quickly, or that don't, or we create watermelon with more flesh, or you know what I mean. We've used GMO to kind of engineer our plants and our vegetables to a level of production that, again, makes it very easy for us to enjoy bountiful harvest. But with AI, we can actually multiply that ability, being able to know exactly which genes, what to splice, how to splice it, how to get, a pomelo and an orange so that you get the modern orange that we experience now. All of that, being able to streamline the process of production from going from the farm to the grocery stores, to the retailer, right? What you see on the screen is, it is, I believe, an MIT professor just kind of designed what a supermarket of the future would look like, being able to buy things, scan things, have that kind of, again, really automated process. So you just, when you want food, it's a matter of walking in and kind of walking back out, but with what you need.
Yeah.
And a supermarket being able to tell the farm, hey, we need you to produce more of this because the demand is like this, or we're seeing these demographic changes. So, this population might prefer or wants to have more fish on hand versus meat. So we want to have, the AI can communicate with the, tech farmers to say, hey, we need to have more of this on hand. It also is with things like, managing the farming workforce, because it is a big deal, how we access, how we think about the people who actually pick the food and maintain our livestock, and the welfare of animals. You also have an AI being able to actually monitor livestock, to say, hey, listen, we need to have greater turnover of the hay that our animals are sitting in to ensure they're in clean environments. Being able to streamline certain processes to reduce, say, the experience of fear that animals might have if they're going into processing plants and things like that. Just to kind of AI can be a part of making agriculture as well as livestock raising more humane. Right? It doesn't have to be that our consumption, if we choose to stick to meat, it doesn't have to be that our consumption stays, what is the word? Potentially inhumane.
Mm-hmm.
But instead we can actually work towards having more humane and more livestock raising, and then also better output, better quality output. So AI, the fact that AI is able to break down information and then do things with it, as we say, artificial intelligence is the application of human logic, learning, understanding, and human agency to computers. Mm-hmm. So the fact that a computer is now able to kind of understand things and process big data on a scale that we as human beings are currently limited by means that you can have an AI that is kind of the perfect Swiss Army knife for a more humane food production cycle. And then when you take that into now the household, a smoother, easier way to actually produce high quality, nutritious meals. And again, when we talk about access, being able to produce food more quickly at less expense, because you're using everything that goes into your production is the absolute necessary quantity at the proper volume and whatnot, and margins become lower. But because there is such volume and you can sell, what we find is that there's easier access to food, and also you can make it possible when you think about wall farms. Because one part of technology that I find really cool when we talk about the future of farming is that kind of wall farm, that vertical farm idea. That doesn't just have to be, large corporations wall farming. That's actually there are units currently available for individuals to be able to farm vertically. Being able to make that technology something broadly accessible. So even people in places where there's food scarcity, maybe they live in a food desert where they don't have access to a supermarket with a lot of fresh food, being able to grow it indoors, right? And have an AI, preferably a free one like Arghon, helping to maintain and keep your personal food garden, so that you have access to fresh food. There's so many different ways, and there's a future in which, when we talk about the application of artificial intelligence and food production and cooking, there can be a future possible where hunger is less common, where malnutrition is reduced. Again, we encourage people when they think about artificial intelligence to think about the opportunity, what's available to you. Again, go to arghon.com, arghon.com, and go to arghon.com/vision 2020 to not just download and get the AI, which is amazing because it's free, but you can actually be a part of creating things like this. You can be the one to create the algorithm, to create the lesson plan that says, hey, here's how you grow your own personal garden. Right now in Arghon, you can do that. But when we think about the future of AI and we think about food and cooking and food prep with AI, it's so much goes into what shows up on our table. So I'm gonna throw it out to you ladies and to the audience. When you think about the future of food, everything that goes into it, and then also when you're at home, the experience of preparing it, what are you excited for? What are you looking forward to?
There's so many things, literally so many things. I just want to do one off-topic thing because it really reminded me, and I feel like you ladies would like it, and then I'll quickly go back on topic. In the UK, I think it was M&S or it was Sainsbury's or something, they once did grapes that tasted like candy floss. Crazy. Yeah. It was amazing. Right, going back on course. I'm excited about so many things. And you, Lauren, one of your points you already touched on, I was going to bring up about the AI already knowing what you've got in your fridge. So then what my mind goes to, because again, like Arghon, we say it's lifestyle enhancing. So, if for some reason you need to watch what you're eating or, you want to lose weight or something like that, imagine not having to sit down and scroll through your phone for hours and hours to get this perfect meal plan for you. The AI knows what you've got in your fridge. So then it's like, right, here you go. There's your plan. And then you've got, like a week's worth of meals. It knows what food you like as well. It knows your allergies and stuff like that. And again, in real time, it's just constructed this whole plan for you without you having to do anything, or you just had to say one thing and it's done. But also, I think something I do a lot is when I'm scrolling through Instagram, I see recipes and I'm like, it doesn't tell me what it is. It's, you get jealous because you're like, I've got serious food envy right now. So imagine sort of the AI being able to generate the recipes just from a photo. I know at the moment there's an app that you can kind of do that similar to plants. So if you take a photo of a certain plant, it's able to tell you what it is, or even diagnose if there's something wrong with it, which is incredible. But yeah, imagine an AI being able to sort of generate the recipe just from seeing a photo. That would be incredible.
And even being able to just save recipes that you find
exactly.
Hey, tell me what grandma's recipe was. Arghon, listen to this, and then you're done. Arghon, I can remember, your grandmother's, beef stew, or your cool auntie's like vegan macaroni.
Oh, amazing. And then one more thing that I thought of as well is we were talking about supermarkets, that imagine your AI is sort of paired up with, various different supermarkets, food shops, and you've told Arghon, hey, I want to do this meal today. And then it tells you, right, well, I know this one shop has all of the ingredients that you're looking for. So again, you don't have to spend hours going to various different shops to get all this ingredients. Like the AI is paired up, so then it knows, well, you can get all your ingredients from this one place. As we always say,
on top of that, it's, the AI is saying, okay, I know she wants to cook these meals this week. Let me make sure I have delivered to the house.
Exactly.
All of the foods you need.
Yeah.
So you're experiencing kind of what, those people with great personal assistants who fill the fridge, and, the boss is never even the wiser, your AI just kind of doing all that for you. So you have, again, a certain lifestyle now that you got, again, basically for the price of, a normal purchase of food, but with an ease and a lack of having to think about it. It's not just, okay, I put an automated order in. It's the AI actually knowing details. It's that sophistication.
Exactly.
Of, well, this kid wants this food, but the husband likes this food, and that. So we have to make sure, as opposed to just saying, okay, what did I put on the list?
Exactly. It's there. It's such like an ease of access, and it just, again, takes so much stress off of the human because the AI is taking care of it for you. So it just really is efficient, and it just makes life so much easier, and I can't wait just to, like, the AI know, right, you're running low on food, I'm going to order her this and this because this is what she eats, on the regular. So
Yeah.
it's so exciting.
Hey.
That is very exciting to think about, that streamlined experience. It doesn't have to come at the premium of having a personal assistant. It really is just your AI working to make your life easier. What's exciting is, being a part of something like Arghon that has those capabilities within it, and it's good to know that AIs right now are working on having the best and the easiest experience for the users, because cooking and food is something that everyone has to interact with every day of their lives. Whether it is getting the food made for you, or you are preparing and cooking or buying, that whole process is something that takes time out of everyone's day, every single day, multiple times out of the day. So to think of this whole process being made easier, it's something that I look forward to. If I need to find a recipe, I can just ask an AI what that recipe is and cook alongside it, which is very nice. But to be reminded if I have any dietary restrictions, if there are multiple people in the household, for that AI to then, accommodate for the different dietary needs and restrictions. Like, someone might be a vegan, someone might be pescatarian, someone might be a full meat eater. There have to be those different considerations thought about. And for an AI to keep track of all of those things, food allergies, everything like that, it's just, your life is made easier. So that is what I think about the side of cooking in the household. But also, just, I'm really encouraged by the dialogue around cooking right now, via science and agriculture, as well as artificial intelligence. All of the brilliant minds that are thinking of ways to create grains that can be optimized in whatever environment those grains are scattered, to grow foods for communities. I also do see a trend right now in the food industry, just getting more back to the basics. And I really do think that it is important, not from a personal perspective, but from a viewpoint of, what can this land do to serve everyone? So even if people may come from, maybe not having so much access to food, everyone can have access to, maybe, places that have farms that can give free food away. But, for it to become something that can be available to everyone, it has to be something that can be produced in a way that is bountiful, as well as efficient, and utilizing of space in a way that is considerate, to make the to consider the need for the crop. So the wall
Yeah.
crops, I think that is a brilliant idea. Yeah, I'm really encouraged by it. I'm really encouraged that, science right now, along with the agriculture industry, teaming up with artificial intelligence to ultimately make something to help all of us. And yeah, I'm always encouraged when AI can come in and really change that conversation of, okay, so you have done this in your human strength, so now this AI is going to come in and do what it only can do. Yeah. Yeah.
Well said. And for all of our viewers, a lot of we are, as an AI company, realizing some of these very things that we're talking about. Arghon has a bunch of recipes, and all you have to do is say, "Hey, Arghon, I need a recipe," And then, it's like, all right, you want vegan, you want, dinner, dessert, breakfast, what are you looking for? And Arghon will actually take you through not just the recipe, but actually the preparation of it. Going through the whole process. So we encourage you to go to arghon.com, download Arghon for yourself, get using it, have Arghon be your companion while you cook. Why not?
Yeah.
Again, it's an artificial intelligence super companion. That's one of the great things about it. So, get on there and then, invite one of your friends, invite all your friends and via Arghon into a live chat, and then talk to each other, chat to each other through Arghon while you're making your food. It's one of the great things, one of many great things that our AI offers. It's a real experience. So we definitely encourage you with that. Ladies, thank you for your response, and to the people watching, thank you for participating in the conversation. I am going to call this episode. This has been Throwback Thursday, where we talk about cooking. If you have any more thoughts or ideas as far as how AI can change the future of, food tech, because this conversation is by no means all encompassing. There's so much that we haven't gotten to.
Right.
Just for the sake of brevity and not going crazy, we had to limit the scope for this episode in this chat. But if you have more that you want to tell us, be sure to follow us on all our social media. That's at Arghon AI for Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. As well as for YouTube, it's youtube.com/Arghon, where you'll actually see a lot of these great videos once they expire on this channel. So we encourage you to show up for our live, to follow us here on this channel, and to subscribe to us on YouTube, because the conversation continues. And be sure to check out arghon.com. That's our website. Get Arghon for yourself. It's completely free, and explore it. And if you are someone out there who has really great food tech that you want to pair with an artificial intelligence, maybe you made a toaster or a blender, or you're coming up with a new stove or an oven, and you want to be able to control it with AI. You want to say, hey, Arghon, preheat my oven. And, it's up at 350 or 100 Celsius and, going. You can do that by joining the Vision 2020 initiative. Also, it's completely free. So go to arghon.com/Vision 2020, and you can create the next artificial intelligence super feature that changes the world and changes how we cook. Thank you, ladies, for being a part of this panel discussion with me. And thank you, viewers, for watching. Again, we'll be back tomorrow, demain, however you want to say it, for our weekly roundup. And that is going to be at 7 p.m. So it's later. It's not the same time. It's at 7 p.m. All right. Any other comments, ideas?
No, just thank you for the episode. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
My pleasure. All right. Well, to all of you, be sure to reach out to us on our social media. Again, it's at Arghon AI for basically everything, and then /Arghon for YouTube. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.